Fantastic. Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I am your host. Thank you for coming back and talking with us. And, we had to bring back Miss Donna Jackson, and because we had such good positive response to the last interview we did with her, and we're going to keep on getting more positive response, because my understanding is that several people I know are sharing this and getting this out more and more. And just like before, I really didn't go much into her background, because to be honest with you folks, man, her resume is just too much. Her accomplishments are too much. We'll be here. Just talking about her, just her background, her education, that's a good 10, 15 minutes right there. And y'all know that my whole program's just 15 minutes. But I do want to say that she is a member of Project 21, a Black Leadership Network, and she's the Director of Membership Development at that organization. She does have a Bachelor's of Accountancy from California State University, cum laude. And just a quick personal side, I really didn't know what this cum laude stuff meant until my daughter graduated recently, and they said she graduated summa cum laude. And she had to tell me, "Daddy, that's good, no problem." I said, "Oh, okay, baby." So I'm seeing here that you had graduated Bachelor of Accountancy and cum laude, so it obviously means, hey, that's quite an accomplishment. You did in college what I didn't do, and that was probably study. Now, your public work, she's done some work with Mike Huckabee and Senator Tim Hutchinson, and at one time you was even deputy controller for the Export-Import Bank in the USA. So there's a lot there, folks. So when we're listening to her and we're learning from her, we're learning from a scholar and a true public servant. Ms. Jackson, today I want to start off with a quote that was attributed to you. Well, I don't know if it was really a quote attributed to you, but that something that you seem to believe rather firmly. You're a firm believer, and I quote, "firm believer in free markets and entrepreneurship as a means of lifting people out of poverty," end quote. Is that accurate? Would you like to add a little bit to that?
That's 100% accurate. The only way that Black America is ever going to work itself out of the situation that we have now is to participate in capitalism. We should really be focused on creating financial markets. We should be focused on creating industry. And that starts from every stage, from small mom and pops all the way to publicly traded institutions. As an accountant, I started off at Ernst & Young, and if you know anything about them, they're one of the 4 largest accounting firms in all the world. And I was responsible for 4 of the 7 largest revenue generators for all of North America. So you'll recognize some of my companies like Nissan North America.
Yeah.
Dollar General, Nareda Aluminum. I was involved in actually 9 IPOs, which that's more than a lot of partners. And we would walk them through the evaluation process, financing, all of these stages in order for them to become publicly traded. Now, today, we only have 9 Black publicly traded companies. And one of the things is that a lot of the problem that we have with Black America is they tend to see themselves as not part of this Constitution, not part of the American system. And they don't view themselves as being able to partake in these companies. Now, I can tell you right now, a lot of the financing for a lot of these tech companies, I had tech companies, I had biotech, I had pharmaceuticals. There's a lot of risk, high risk in these types of endeavors. And usually they come out of a single idea. I'll give you one example. I had a company called Care Fusion. A guy who was going to the ATM machine to withdraw money thought, Wouldn't that be an interesting concept if we did that for individuals in hospitals that have to be given medication? So they would have a drawer that the medicines for that individual were put in that drawer, and then when you put the card in for that patient, then his prescriptions would automatically be dispensed. And so there you took the human element of people going through each bottle to be able to pull what they needed. And it was sort of creating an efficiency on common things that we use. Everybody has those types of ideals. It only takes one type of ideal. This ended up being a multi-billion-dollar industry for that simple concept. But what has happened with the African American community is we have this sort of, I don't call it, but in psychology, they call it transgenerational trauma. So what we've done is we've taken slavery, we stopped there. We've taken slavery and we've passed that down from generation to generation to generation. And each generation, even the one we're on now, feels like this just happened yesterday. So it's their perception of, it's not how people feel about us, it's how we think people think and feel about us that stops us from exploring the possibility that we can create. The other thing is that we've been stuck, and there was a lot of value in the civil rights movement. But we've been stuck in that same situation where we think it's the government that has to help us. Now, when you think that way, you're sitting there waiting for them to do their part. So what does that mean for you as an entrepreneur, you as an idealist, you as an innovator? You don't innovate because you're waiting for the government to do its part. If you're waiting for them to do their part, you're not acting on these ideals. And because we passed this trauma, we're not taking the kind of risk that we should to bring a product to market. You know, most companies fail like four to 7 times before they actually make it. But we think that if we experience any barriers, and that's important to realize, if we experience any barriers, then we stop there. And that's not, you'll never get a product to market when you have that mentality. That's why they have what we call research and development departments, because that's all about failing till you succeed. Right. And we don't do that because we think we're owed something. You know, I say it all the time. We should look at where we are and what we overcame as a inspiration of what you can do, what the human spirit can overcome. Yes. Not as a sense of vengeance, like I need you to pay me back. And I'm going to stand here and wait for you to pay me back before I move and do anything. Right. So you have people who are sitting around waiting for, reparations, payments, whatever it is, transfer programs, and they're not using that innovation. If you look at the number of times that what we have today in terms of what built this country, you look at Sam Walton. He started his first store, and at the end of the lease, the owner took the store away from him, so he had to start again. And every time he would open up a new store, he mortgaged his house because no financial institutions would give him a loan. And then every time when he wanted products, the manufacturers, they laughed at him and said, you know what, we'll sell you the products, but you got to figure out how to get them there because we're not going to any town like that to deliver your products. He was the one that came up with the logistics of having your own warehouses, having your own trucks. Before that, that had never been done. And I'm saying, giving those examples to say that when we face a barrier, it's not for us to stop there because barriers are supposed to exist.
Mm.
That is where the greatest innovations come in. When you face a challenge, that's when the biggest innovations come in. And we need to have that mentality where we're not passing down to our kids and telling them that we can't because these people are against us. They're supposed to be that way. And I want to put in a business context. In business, every year, there's no such thing as a safe business. Every year, the business does a SWOT analysis. They look at their strengths, their weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Guess why? Because threats always exist. Weaknesses always exist. But let's see what we're strong at, where we see that we can have an opportunity, and then let's mitigate those in order for us to continue our products. And that always exists. We should be doing the same thing in our lives when we're thinking about where we're going and how we get there. One of the things that I did when I first started working in accounting, and my professor, I'm glad I had a professor that was able to share this knowledge with me. He told me, you know what, Donna, every 3 years, it takes you about first year you're learning, the second year, you gain some momentum, and then the third year, you pretty much master what you do. He said, every 3 years, if you feel like you're ready, then, apply for a promotion because you can teach other people. He said, if they don't give it to you, go to another company because they'll pay you a premium for the knowledge that you've learned at that one company. And so he said, if you do that, you can double your income every 4 to 6 years. Let me tell you, it works. So I'm saying this.
Wow.
The reason why I bring this up is because we see slavery, we see racism as barriers. So we apply for a job and they don't give it to us. That Joe Blow Tommy was racist to me and he didn't give it to me because I'm Black. What we don't realize is I have a valuable skill set that I can market and people will pay for. It's no different than if I was sitting there and I built a car. It has it has some value that somebody will pay for. If I add on a different product on that car or different service there, people will pay a premium for it. And you have to market it towards those customers. That is the same thing we should be doing in our lives when it comes to our skill sets at our jobs. We should be learning. Every opportunity should be considered a learning opportunity so we can market the skills we've learned. If you look at the individuals that started Home Depot, it was 2 managers that worked for True Value. And they were sitting there going, this is not the best way that we should be making, this hardware store. It's not productive. And the people laughed at them. So they didn't go, oh my God, they're racist. They just don't understand. But they didn't say, oh my God, these people just are against us. And they said, well, you know what? They're missing an opportunity, but we're going to take advantage. And these 2 managers started Home Depot, and there was a time when Home Depot started that every 60 seconds they were opening up a new store. Our ideals are valuable. Our skills are valuable. And so what Black people need to realize that it's not about what someone gives you. It's about a skill, a service that you can provide. And how do we monetize that? And we can't. And the fact that people are saying, oh, well, the banks won't give us the money or they won't lend us the money. Fred Smith, that started Express Mail, Federal Express, that really revolutionized the way we receive and do business, not just business, but products. He got an F on his paper. His professor told him that was the stupidest idea he had ever heard. And along with some friend in there, started Federal Express Mail. When they first started, they couldn't make payroll. They actually took the money that they had, him and his wife flew to Vegas and gambled,
Wow.
won the money, and used that to make payroll because they couldn't do it. See, people think, and unfortunately, Black people have been taught that if something is hard, that if somebody puts a barrier up in front of you, then you can't do it. No, the barrier lets you know what you're made of. It's always high risk involved in a product. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. And we should realize that every ideal, and you only need one, could be a marketable ideal. And if you fail, at least you tried. It's
Right.
better to try than to sit around and wait for somebody to drop an opportunity in your lap. And unfortunately, that's what African Americans have been doing far too long. There's
Right.
always risk. But the reason why you see these CEOs, the reason why you see these owners make such a huge amount of money is because they took the risk. And so their reward was large. And, we have that same ability. We really do. But we've been stagnant in we're telling each other, well, they. What did they have to do with anything?
Mm.
How many times a product that was started in somebody's garage, borrowing money from their friends, hawking, mortgaging, selling products? It depends. It's not about what they believe. How much do you believe in your ability to produce?
Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. We're speaking with Miss Donna Jackson. She's with Project 21. She's the Director of Membership Development there. And as you can just hear, a woman just filled with tremendous amount of information, knowledge, and wisdom. And I really hope that my listeners take this and share with many people as possible, particularly Black folk who are involved in business and building business, entrepreneurship, things of that nature. Sis, we've just got a few minutes left, but one thing you had mentioned, in my personal experience as an entrepreneur and dealing with other Black entrepreneurs, is that we oftentimes have the tendency to sort of do sole proprietorships. And it's rough. I mean, oftentimes I say to myself, the only thing I've done is just created a job for myself. I haven't really built a company.
Right.
And then you had mentioned there are like 9 Black companies that are publicly traded. Oh my! What am I doing wrong? What do we? How do we get to that level? What are some books would you recommend, or should we just sort of like, wait for you to release a book to tell us, look, here's how you get from this little small step to the big picture.
I would study, even some of the older ones, like see some of the Henry Fords and some of the Steve Jobs and some of the Fred Smiths. I think it's important for people to realize how hard things were,
Okay.
for you to move from one step to another. But you're right when you do a sole proprietorship. But what you should be doing is pay attention to the product or service you have. Then look into other markets and see how that product could be sold to someone else. When you start off with a product and service, the first thing you should be thinking about is who's going to buy my product? Who can I sell this product to? But the other thing is, move it beyond like a customer. But what about a business to business? How could that be used? Always be thinking about how you can transfer for form that product, that service in another way so that someone else can use it. I want to think about. I want to tell you about Marriott, Bill Marriott. He started off selling root beer on a cart.
Hmm.
And what happened is when people roll back and forth, he sell root beer in the cart. And then his I think it was his son said, while we're selling root beer in the cart to people while they're going from one place to another, why don't we give them a place to rest?
Hmm.
And so then of course the mom was like, no, that's not what we do. We sell hot dogs, we sell root beers. But he was just thinking like somebody might want to sit down and drink that root beer. But from that became Marriott Hotels. Marriott Hotels didn't start
Wow.
as hotels. Marriott Hotels start off as a root beer stand. So when you're making a product, when you have a service, think about add-ons. Think strategically, like when you go to McDonald's and you say, I want a Big Mac. And what's the first thing that she said? Would you like fries with that? You want an
Yeah.
apple pie with that? You want to make that a meal? Think about upselling. So when you're selling a product or a service, always be thinking of how you can do an upsell, something that's a value add along with what you're already doing, and who might be interested in that. It may be, and it happens very often, that your up product begins to be your main product, but your original product just got you in the door to do that.
Hmm.
And this happens all the time. If you look at, you know, people used to have kerosene. Nobody knew that oil would be more. They used to throw that away. They thought it was a useless product. But oil, we don't. When things changed and electricity came and people weren't using kerosene, all of a sudden oil became the main product. But that was a byproduct of kerosene, which they thought would be the main product.
Right.
So always be thinking of, when I'm doing something, how can I upsell it? Who would be interested? And would that give me an opportunity for me to go into a greater area? Because when you're thinking of that, now you get to bring in other people. You get to bring in other marketing strategies and to expand. Because I know that we do it. We say, I have a good amount of success doing accounting, but you don't think, I'm not limited to accounting. I understand how these numbers can expand the business that I'm in. And so maybe my area should be focusing on how to grow your business and not just to record the transactions after they've happened. So
Hmm.
always be thinking of an additional product, an additional service, because the more products and services, what I call the value adds, that you can get a person to buy, the more staff you need to do that, to carry it out. The more, if you're making a company more efficient in what they're doing, then
Hmm.
they want to buy your services, then that means your department is going to grow. What else is it that I can do that people will want to have that would allow me the opportunity to expand beyond what I'm doing right now?
And sis, as I'm listening to you, I'm going to go back to this original statement here. Firm believer in free markets and entrepreneurship as a means of lifting people out of poverty. I mean, you explained it. You just that's the position, and then boom, you elaborated on it.
Right.
Why do we have so many black intellectuals who are clear leftists? I mean, they're open about being leftist, socialist, Marxist, W. Du Bois, Cornel West. So many of them. I don't get it.
Well, when you think about entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship, capitalism gives you control over your life. Socialism gives the government control over your life. They'll determine what you can do and what you can't do, and they're never going to allow you to grow more than the amount of control they can have over you.
Mm.
And and unfortunately, and it's one of the things that bothers me about African Americans, and I don't care from what walk of life, that bothers me is that a lot of African Americans will climb up the ladder and then they want to kick it down so
Mm.
that everybody else can go. So they want to be one super minority. They want to be the one that's in a prominent position, but they're not looking beyond the fact that, you know what, if it's not about me taking a slice of the pie, and if I have a slice of the pie, that means you don't have one. It's about making the pie itself bigger.
Mm.
And capitalism, entrepreneurship, upward mobility, economic upward mobility, innovation makes the pie bigger. But socialism keeps the pie in the hands of one person or the other. But not everybody can, have a piece of the pie. And
Right.
so that's the biggest difference. And we've had that mentality for too long where we're thinking like, they're going to give us. And I correct people all the time. Well, I say, well, why don't we, start our own business? Well, their banks won't give us the money. I was like, well, how come we don't start our own banks? We don't start our own credit unions.
Right.
We buy Michael Jordans and we stand outside all day overnight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I've seen it.
Contributed. I mean, when you were talking about the stock market earlier, if everyone, instead of buying those Michael Jordans that's going to wear out, invested in the stock market, or everyone that were going to use that Michael Jordan, put that money in a credit union, then where would we be? The financial strength that we would have. We're very quick, and I was thinking about this morning. We'll take a housing voucher. They give you a Section 8 voucher or something like that.
Yes.
I've seen it. People go, oh, this is great. They'll pay my rent, all of that. And you'll have someone that will have that housing voucher, that will live on that housing voucher for 25 years. That means that's 25 years you didn't invest in property yourself. Because if you don't own anything, remember, they'll help you in the short term as long as you never produce or create any wealth for yourself. So 25 years of mortgage payment in even a modest home could amount to an astronomical amount of money. I tell you that there are people who bought a house 15, 20 years ago for $25,000.
Mm-hmm.
That homes are now worth over $1 million.
Wow.
Now, think about the amount of money that if that individual with that housing voucher would have had a minimum, a basic blue collar job, got skills, lived within their means, saved money every year, bought a this house, the next egg they would have sat on. But they owe us. But because we built this country and we were slaves, so I'm going to let the government take care of it. And that's the mentality that we have. And that's why the big wealth gap.
Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. We've been speaking with Sister Donna Jackson, Project 21. She's a member of Project 21, a Black Leadership Network. She's the Director of Membership Development. Unfortunately, we're going to have to close the interview here. But next time, we're going to charge tuition for this college course. This is just a tremendous amount of information, knowledge, and wisdom she shares with us every time we bring her on. Sis, I hope we can do this again. Maybe one time we should even just bring you to Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know if you've ever been here before. So, just putting that little bug in your ear because, you just strike me as we got to expose you to as many people as possible out there. And So again, thank you. Hopefully we can do this again sometime. And
Absolutely.
and I want to say again to my listeners, please share this podcast with as many people as possible. All right, my sister, I'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you. It was a pleasure as always.
Thank you.